Good evening. We're ready to begin. This Planning Commission meeting is called to order. This meeting is properly noticed and posted in compliance with the open meeting law. These proceedings are being video recorded as well as presented live on KCLV, Cable Channel 2. Please note customers of CenturyLink and Cox Communications can view this program in high definition on 1002 and in standard definition on Channel 2. You can also watch this meeting live on the Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV on the Go Vegas app, which I just recently downloaded, and we should all download. The Planning Commission meeting, as well as the other KCLV programming, can be viewed on the internet at www.kclv.tv/live. The proceedings will be rebroadcast on KCLV and the web the Saturday of the meeting at 10 a.m., Monday at midnight, and the following Tuesday at 6 p.m. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Chair Cherry.
Present.
Vice Chair DeSalvio. Excused. Commissioner Schlottman.
Present.
Commissioner Toussaint.
Present.
Commissioner Williams.
Present.
Commissioner Rogan.
Present.
And Commissioner Chada.
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you. I call your attention to the information printed in the agenda concerning our actions and the appeal and review process, if appropriate. There are agendas on both sides of the podium if you'd like to come up and follow along. Also, the second page of the agenda contains our rules of conduct. We appreciate you adhering to these rules so we can have a smooth meeting. Moving on to item number 4, public comment. All comments made under this item for specific action will be cross-referenced to those items. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak under this item? This is just the public comment portion. We haven't gotten to the agenda yet, so this is, we will be going on to the agenda. Okay, moving on to the approval of the minutes. Can we get a motion for the minutes? Vice Chair Schlottman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve the November 12th, 2019 Planning Commission minutes.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries. Moving on to item number 6, our housekeeping. Are there any items that commissioners, staff, applicants, or members of the public would like to pull forward for action? I'll go to you, Eric.
Mr. Chairman, we have some housekeeping items. The applicant wishes to obey item 8 to the January 14th, 2020 Planning Commission. This is the second abeyance request for this item. The applicant wishes to obey items 13 through 18 to the January 14th, 2020 Planning Commission. This is the first abeyance request for these items. And the applicant wishes that item 26 be stricken from the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Chada?
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the applicant on the abeyance of item number 8.
Is the applicant here for item number 8? If you could please come to the podium. We need your name, address for the record.
Good evening, Scott Rutledge, Argentum Partners, 6037 South Fort Apache, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89135. I'm representing the applicant on this SUP application, and I think there was a little bit of a miscommunication. I was going back through the packet. We requested an abeyance in writing to planning staff on October 31st for this meeting to go to the first meeting in January. And speaking with the commissioner, about 2 weeks ago, I think there was a miscommunication on my part, and I apologize about that. We were not planning to proceed tonight, and after in conversations with Eric from planning earlier, I let it be known we would like to obey the item to the January meeting, and we have been in communications. I've spoken to some of the commissioners about this. We would very much appreciate the opportunity to present at that meeting. That being said, I understand some members of the public have come this evening, and if it's appropriate, would be happy to if you want to take those comments tonight and then have them come back again. I don't them not have a chance to be heard, but as far as presenting or requesting any action tonight, we request an abeyance to the January meeting.
The question that I have is, what are we requesting an abeyance for?
to take action in the January meeting, for no action tonight, for the item to be heard in the January meeting. But again, understanding that members of the public have come this evening with the understanding that the item would be heard, that we would be, I know our applicant would be fine with those comments going on the record tonight, if that's appropriate procedural-wise. Otherwise, we'd request that action be taken at the January meeting.
Are you not prepared to be heard tonight?
No, we are not.
Okay. Well, unfortunately, we have people in the public that are here. I have also attended your town hall meetings, and I think people are ready to hear this item, so I'd like to make a motion to deny the abeyance.
Okay. There's a motion on item number 8 to deny the abeyance. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries. So we will be hearing item number 8 tonight on the agenda.
Thank you.
We also have the other housekeeping items. Vice Chair Schlotman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, on items 13 through 18, I'd make a motion to hold those in abeyance until the January 14th, 2020 Planning Commission hearing. And on item 26, I would make a motion to have that item stricken from the agenda.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries. Okay, moving on to the one motion.
Mr. Chairman.
Yep, excuse
I'm
me.
sorry, I also have a housekeeping matter, too.
Oh, please.
On item 21, Mr. Foster's variance 77766, we had a discussion this evening, and I'm requesting an abeyance, to the January 14th meeting as well.
21. And what was it was to January 14th?
Correct.
And Director, we're able to do that because it's in January. We have that agendized.
Yes, sir. So that is a scheduled meeting, and it is within the 30-day window that a commissioner can request an abeyance.
Okay, there's a,
You may just want to ask if the applicant's here, and
Yeah,
if they have any objection to the abeyance, just to, for the record.
Is the applicant here? Oh, please come on up. I'll need your name and address for the record.
Richard Foster, 1916 West Oakey Boulevard, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89102.
And you're in agreement with the abeyance?
Yes.
Okay. And I believe we can do it from the commission for a 30-day abeyance at request. So, great. Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
Okay,
Thank you,
thanks.
Mr. Foster. Thank you, Commissioner Rogan.
And Mr. Chairman, just for the record, I want to just clarify something. You voted to obey, or not to obey, the item number 8. I know in the past that you have abstained on marijuana items because you are in the marijuana business, but I indicated that you are able to vote since it's not a substantive motion, but you won't be voting on it when you actually
Correct.
hear the item.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to one motion, one vote items. The following are items that may be considered in one motion, one vote. Excuse me, they're considered routine, non-public, and public hearing items. All public hearings and non-public hearings will be opened at one time. Any person representing an application or member of the public, or a member of the Planning Commission not in agreement with the conditions and all standard conditions for the application recommended by staff should request to have the item removed from this part of the agenda. Item number 7, TMP 77769, applicant Woodside Homes, owner Howard Hughes Company, LLC, for possible action request for a tentative map for a 94-unit single-family residential subdivision on 8.93 acres at the northwest corner of Kindle Corner Way and Carriage Hill Drive, Ward 2. Staff recommends approval. That is our only item on the one motion, one vote. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone in the public like to be heard for the one motion, one vote part of the agenda? Seeing no one, we'll close it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on the one motion, one vote items to go ahead and move for approval.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, that item is final action this evening unless appealed to the city clerk's office within 7 days.
Thank you. Moving on to the public hearing items. Item number 8, I will go to Vice Chair Schlotman. I have to abstain because my family's in the cannabis industry.
Yes, and just a quick disclosure on item number 8. I've worked on many of these facilities in the past. However, I'm not associated with this. I've never worked for these individuals, and so my independence of judgment won't be affected. With that disclosure, item number 8, abeyance SUP 77274. Action on a request for a special use permit for a proposed 4,800 square foot marijuana dispensary use at 9140 West Sahara Avenue, Ward 2. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the proposed marijuana dispensary meets all Title 19 special use permit requirements, and staff finds the proposed use to be compatible with existing uses in the area. Staff therefore recommends approval. Please note that there are additional letters of protest since publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Is the applicant present? If we can get your name and address for the record.
Good evening again. Scott Rutledge, Argentum Partners, 6037 South Fort Apache Road, Las Vegas, Nevada, 89135. Going back to the process on this and reviewing the attachments for the item this evening, I did send an email to Ms. Prince on the 31st requesting the abeyance, and then I had emailed Commissioner Chada last week making the same request. I was not under the impression that we would be presenting, so I do apologize that I'm not fully prepared or that the client isn't here. I had a couple of conversations with some planning commissioners about this earlier. Our understanding with this application is that it is a very contentious application. We've had 2 neighborhood meetings, but we've also continued to go out and speak to neighbors live in Ward 2 and have started to identify support for this application. But there are some things that we would like to continue to discuss about whether or not the land use should be conditioned, and again, in conversations with the councilwoman's office, letting her know that we are, because of the current concerns around this item, that we would like to continue to move at a slower pace. One, to have a chance to continue to talk to neighbors, which is the priority at this point. So I am, based on the staff report, we feel confident that we meet the city's requirements. We are prepared to, be conditioned on things such as operating hours, et cetera, looking at security protocols. But again, based on my communications, both with the planning department and Commissioner Chada a week ago in writing, I was under the impression that we were not going to present to you this evening. But I am happy to answer any questions about the application, the process, or those conversations in full transparency.
Thank you. And I think our plan tonight will be to get everybody's opinions on the record that come out tonight, and we'll be able to hear from them and have that in our backup, and then we'll see if we vote on this or hold an abeyance at the end. But for now, we'll go ahead and open the public hearing.
Thank you.
And give you a chance to speak here in a minute.
Thank you.
This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone wanting to be heard, please come forward, state your name and address for the record. We have 3 microphones up front. If you want to talk, I want to see people at each of the microphones. We're going to set a 2-minute limit for each person that wants to talk, and try not repeating anything that's already been said prior to you speaking. Thank you.
You want me to go ahead and go?
Yes.
My name is Mary Ann Goodsell. I live at 1608 Taylor Woodrow Drive, kind of kitty corner across in a development called Piccoli Ranch, which has, if you were just move this camera out, as I see the screen, it is over sort of in your left-hand side of your screen. We have, I happen to be on the board of directors. I am not representing the Homeowners Association. I'm just a resident in that regard, but we have nearly 3,000 units in that space. So although this shows a golf course and lots of parking spots, there are a lot of people in close proximity. I just have my main component is, I think we need to learn from those who have gone before us. We have several states. Colorado has put a moratorium on their recreational marijuana dispensary permits. I believe Massachusetts has, and somebody mentioned that New Jersey has as well, and for good reasons. There are many studies out there that are showing what complications have been created by dispensaries in neighborhoods. Specifically, Ohio State did a 3-year study, in Colorado, showing some really great detail, and Councilwoman Victoria Seaman has been great. She's been to our council meetings. She has all the links to the studies that I will reference, super legitimate, like these are people who are really trying to get to the bottom of. One of the things, just one of the simple components, is they did a study about how is the neighborhood immediately adjacent to these dispensaries affected. The people who are applying have amazing security. They have 24-hour guards. They have every lock and key you can imagine. In the study, it showed that they will probably never be broken into. But they showed, on average, an additional 84 residences in the adjoining neighborhood that will suffer property damage related to this, an increase of 84 that they can only attribute to the marijuana dispensary being put in. There are a couple of other concerns. One is that one of the studies shows that there is an increase in marijuana-related hospitalizations in the hospitals that service where the dispensaries are, which I think is a definite consideration. The other thing is we are 1.5 miles from 2 elementary schools, a public library down the street, kitty corner across the street. If you just go diagonally across Sahara, there is a child's daycare there. We've got elementary schools, we've got a synagogue just on the other side of the street. So this is a neighborhood, and I don't know if Councilwoman Seaman actually CC'd you on this, but she stated to us as residents, and I'll just read a section briefly from her email, what her recommendation to the applicant was. And in some ways this feels a bit offensive because the voice was clear. We had hundreds and hundreds of people, and for those of you who weren't aware, this matter was addressed less than a year ago. Council meetings, the applicant ended up withdrawing their application because they saw it was very clear it is not wanted in this neighborhood. But let me just take a quote from Victoria's email to us, which we were so grateful for. The overwhelming opposition voiced against the dispensary at both public town halls, along with the stream of emails and phone calls opposing the dispensary that have come into my office, make it clear to me that the residents of Ward 2 do not want the dispensary in this community. Therefore, I've asked the applicant to withdraw the application for special use permit, and she acknowledges that is their decision altogether. And I think maybe a zoning issue needs to be addressed in the future, because I understand they meet the requirements, which is terrific, but maybe a rethink about why this doesn't really maybe meet the neighborhood requirements.
Thank you, and I will make a comment that I let you go a little bit longer. You had a lot of things to say, and and you weren't repeating yourself, but I'm going to start holding it to 2 minutes.
Did you have a question of me?
Nope, thank you. Good evening, sir.
Hello, I'm Dan Goodsell, actually married to the previous speaker. I also reside in Piccoli Ranch. My comment is just that of all the potential uses for this particular use, this seems to be, it's hard to come up with a worse choice for a property for this use. I mean, it's right up against one of the busiest streets in Nevada. You've got 6 lanes of traffic right across the street from it. I think, first of all, you need to acknowledge that even though they're going to have armed guards, being a cash business, and for the foreseeable future, I think it will always be a cash business because of one, even if they get their banking issues worked out on a federal level, I think people are always going to want to have anonymity on purchasing marijuana, if nothing else, for just drug testing purposes. So with that, and with other businesses becoming less cash over time, it makes this business especially susceptible to some kind of a sophisticated armed robbery type of attempt. And if that happens, you can see from the map, I mean, you're very close to very dense housing. And aside from that, you're right next to very dense parking, restaurants and commercial uses surround this particular use that are also going to be densely occupied with families, young children. It is offensive that the applicant wants to continue to proceed in light of the overwhelming evidence, especially when the applicant at the public hearings was going on about how they want to be such great citizens, and yet it's offensive that they completely disregard the overwhelming opposition.
You have about 15 seconds remaining.
Well, with that, other than just the other problem with this, aside from the very dense residential and commercial use, it's also got green belts that are completely unprotected.
that are pretty densely forested and vegetated, and it's a perfect place for people to be involved in illegal trafficking of the marijuana that they've purchased and are selling to young kids that can't purchase legally.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, Lorraine Kusawara. I live in Canyon Gate, and I also own Neonopolis. I've seen what the marijuana business has done
Can I
down
get-
by
get
my
your
business,
address?
and I don't,
Can I get your address,
8981
please?
Opus.
Oh, okay, thank you.
I don't want these people in my neighborhood. I serve on the board at Canyon Gate. I've been in Canyon Gate for 25 years, paying my taxes, taking care of my neighborhood, making sure that all of my neighbors are safe, and we're working very hard to keep people from coming over the fences into our community and destroying and graffitiing everywhere. These people know that we don't want them there. They've had their meetings, and they're trying to postpone this so that we can't show up in January. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, sir.
I really apologize. I'm an old rock and roller, and I'm having one heck of a time hearing everybody, so I'll do the best I can here. My name is Wayne Cook, C-O-O-K.
Can I get your address?
I'm sorry, what?
Your address?
7744 Brothers Bay Court.
Thank you.
This dispensary is in the heart of Summerlin, surrounded by pristine communities. We don't want or need a marijuana dispensary, period. This was verified at 2 previous town hall meetings. Selling marijuana is against federal law and terrifying to the community. Here's information from the Justice Quarterly of Criminal Sciences. Point number 1. Neighborhoods with a dispensary saw increased crime of up to 1,452%. Point number 2. After Colorado legalized marijuana, violent crime rose by 20%. This is documented in this magazine and verified by the University of Colorado. The City Council promised dispensaries would not be in residential areas. The marijuana ordinance ignores critical zoning issues, especially for the safety of our children. A bus stop is across the street that transports children to and from school. A public sidewalk is less than 20 feet from the dispensary. Schools and dance studios are less than 1,000 feet. A major library and synagogue are just up the street. Condos and apartments are very close. Major public schools are within 1/2 mile. Local businesses that cater to families and children are within a few feet of this dispensary. IHOP, Baskin-Robbins. When you go into Baskin-Robbins, they have a little thing right there for the kids, and it says for the little people. These places all cater to children and families. Chipotle, Carl's Jr., comic book stores, movie theaters, many, many businesses within those shopping centers of that corner cater to families, and they're not being protected. I own a business located close to the proposed dispensary. It is heartbreaking to imagine what might happen and how the zoning law has been so flagrantly distorted and compromised to accommodate these drug dealers. Listen to the owner of IHOP. This is a letter that he sent in.
Okay, sir, before you,
I'm sorry.
we're about a minute over.
What's that?
You're about a minute over,
Could I have 20 more seconds?
I'll give you 20 more seconds.
Okay. The IHOP letter says, IHOP is a family restaurant with many customers bringing their kids of all ages. Many visitors to the dispensary will be drug abusers, addicts, and criminals. This is a task. We ask the department to support the will of the people. This dangerous and harmful SUP must not be approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We have a few microphones, so if the other people want to talk, I can get 2 or 3 people up here at the microphones, please.
Chairman?
Yes.
Do you want to submit that letter, or?
Sir, could somebody ask if he wants to submit that letter? Go ahead.
Yes, Commissioners, my name is Kimberly Hughes, 931 Paisley Street, Las Vegas, Nevada. And I oppose the dispensary because it is located in the heart of a suburban area where people are raising their children and families. And I believe that to put a dispensary at this location would change the whole tone and character of the neighborhood. And therefore, I'm asking you respectfully to deny the special use permit to the applicant.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Sherilyn Adams, 1916 Shifting Wind Street. I also live in Piccoli Ranch, and I am opposed to the special use permit. I am born and raised from Colorado, and so I've seen firsthand what has happened to communities that have approved recreational marijuana dispensaries. I think that 90% of people who go to recreational marijuana dispensaries are very good people, and so I'm not trying to say that these are evil people who are coming, but there is a small percentage that aren't going to make good choices, as with everything. I go on walks daily in our green belts, and by myself often, generally in the daylight. And so I'm just concerned that as people go and get their marijuana and they're not currently going to be partaking of it there, they're not going to be smoking it there, and there will be people that are coming into our green belts because it's a very easy place to go in and to use their marijuana. And just last night, I was on a walk in the green belt, and there was a man in there that was, I was wondering what he was doing. He was tagging our tunnels, and I'm just concerned that there will be more people who are not part of our community and therefore are not as respectful as the thing that we have created there. I have 4 children, ages 6 to 14, and I am concerned about the increased traffic that this is going to cause to the area, and I have been known to take my older boys to the movie theater there and let them go in by themselves, and I don't know that I'll feel comfortable doing that anymore with a dispensary across the way, because marijuana is a legitimate drug and it does impact our thinking, just as getting drunk does, and so I'm not necessarily going to want my children to be unsupervised around somebody who's high and may not be acting as they normally would. So I really appreciate that you guys heard this tonight, because I did have to miss things for my children in order to come out. And so I just hope that you will deny the special use permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Shauna Delamar. I also live in Piccoli Ranch, 9912 Dusty Winds Avenue. 2 points that I want to make. There are a few other dispensaries within 2 or 3 miles of this proposed location. If I want to go to Walmart, I choose to drive 15 minutes to go to Walmart. I'm asking that if those that would like to purchase marijuana or cannabis, that they drive 5 more minutes to the dispensaries that are already within the area. This is just too close to residential neighborhoods and to family-oriented businesses, as has been stated before. My concern is that those businesses that are existing now will terminate their leases or not renew their leases when they do expire, and these commercial centers will become vacant, and they will be grounds for crime and loitering. We have seen what it looks like down on Rainbow and Sahara, where there are dispensaries, and the loitering that's going on, the people that are just hanging out there in the parking lots. That's not the people that we want in our neighborhoods. Our unprotected green belts. There are schools within, 3 schools within a mile from this, daycare, synagogues, theaters, family restaurants. This is not the neighborhood for the dispensary. We are not arguing the legal use or dispensaries in general. This is just not the location. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hello. My name is Fran Abbott, A-B-B-O-T-T. I live at 2021 Eagle Trace Way in Las Vegas in Canyon Gate, and I'm opposed to the dispensary for the reasons that everybody else has enumerated right now. Also, for other reasons. The process has been off-putting. The first public hearing that we had, the town hall, was canceled on the day of the town hall. There were 2 subsequent ones, which we went to, and the sentiment was almost unanimous, or strongly anti the dispensary. And here we are now. I was disappointed that the Planning Commission, in the face of what our residents had said, excuse me, the Planning Commission, in the face of what our residents had said, approved the application or felt that it would be a good thing for the city. My other reasons for being against this is I'm terrified of marijuana. We had a couple of family members who used it as a gateway drug, and we don't have anything to do with them anymore because we can't. I've also seen in the paper, like just the other day, pot tests produce odd data. This article shows that this marijuana stuff is a work in progress. The article says that most of the testing in Nevada is not adequate to identify the presence of yeast, mold, aspergillus, pesticides, or heavy metals, as well as potency. This is a problem, and I don't think it's advisable to give the green light to something unless the proper safeguards are in place. I have also, am I done? No.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Hi, I'm Frank Abbott, Mary Francis's husband. So we both live at 2021 Eagle Trace Way in Canyon Gate. Until a few weeks ago, I was president of the board of directors of Canyon Gate. Know a lot of the residents. I think and I'm not representing the HOA in any way, so because I'm not a member of the board anymore. The concern we have is the neighborhoods that surround this property, because you have 5 very densely populated neighborhoods where families congregate, families do things that surround this area. If somebody needs to put this, let them put it in an industrial place where the families aren't there, where the homeowners don't get into it. We've seen an uptick in some of the break-ins that we've had in our communities. Even though we're guard gated, we still have people coming over the walls, people coming and doing bad things within the neighborhood. And we need the protection of the government to make sure that this doesn't get exacerbated by putting a dispensary right in the middle of the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners, thank you. Good evening. My name is Mac Miller, and I not only live within Assembly District 5 that crosses over into Ward 2, or Ward 2 crosses into Assembly District 5, but I have a residence in Ward 2 as well, and I have 2 young girls that go to a school within walking distance of where this proposed location is to be. I understand, and I'm a long-term resident, I was born and raised in Las Vegas. I understand there is a reason why we have zoning for certain businesses, as we have zoning for strip clubs, as we have zoning for porn shops and things of that nature. And just like those businesses, they'd be required to request a special use permit. That's the reason why they requested it, is because it's not zoned for such a business for a reason. I've heard the arguments of the proponents, those people that support this, and while their argument that crime decreases immediately surrounding a marijuana dispensary, that is because they're required to patrol it, they're required to have extra security and lighting. But what they don't tell you is that immediately adjacent to those dispensaries, the crime rate increases. Now, if you notice, immediately adjacent to this proposed location are the residents, many of them that are here and that have spoken out against this. I, too, oppose the vote in support of this special use permit. Again, I have 2 little girls. I was born and raised in this community. I've lived in most of your districts and most of the wards in this city in my 43 years living in this community. So I do oppose that. For use of better terminology, or lack of better terminology, the fact that the smell that's wafting from the outside with the bulls out there have seemed to seep into the chambers through the proponents of this bill is not a nice thing. But this is about safety of the community, safety of the neighborhood, and I oppose this special use permit. So again, for the record, my name is Mac Miller. Just to put on record also, I'm here as a representative of the Chinese American Citizens Alliance with the thousands of members that we have, as well as I am supporting and backing all of the people that called me and asked me to be here to oppose this special use permit, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
My name is Joyce Hazard, 2908 Broken Willow Circle. We live in the Lakes. But I'm opposed to this because what everybody else said, but also you must be able to see that this is going to bring in people that don't live in our neighborhoods, that may not be, maybe of not a good reputation, and like they said, spread crime. I feel very safe where I live right now, but I will not feel safe if you bring this kind of business into my neighborhood, where we go to all these businesses right now, and we don't want to lose them because you're going to put a dispensary here. We like it how it is. We support our local businesses, and we don't want more crime in our neighborhood. And I feel safe, and it's your job to keep citizens safe. So that's why I ask you not to approve this. You've heard all these citizens say that, so why you need to listen to the citizens that live there. We're paying taxes for where we live, and we want to keep it safe, and that's your job. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
My name is Mike Hazard, and I live at 2908 Broken Willow Circle. This is my wife. And so first of all, I want to say thank you to Victoria Seaman for all that she's done to keep us informed in the neighborhood about what is going on, and for her, just her continuous support and communication with us. As you might know, from not only from the previous town halls that have been held, but also from the opinions that have been expressed tonight, that I haven't heard one opinion in favor of this. And so I hope that you will take note of that, because it is not the norm. Favorable to this is not of a high opinion here, and for all the reasons that people have mentioned so far, I concur with and support. And so therefore, I continue to urge you not to allow this to happen, to deny the application for the SUP 7724. In closing, if I could make one suggestion, that if the applicant thinks that it's such a great idea for this business, then there's plenty of places down on industrial or in another industrial area throughout this county, throughout this city, and I encourage them to utilize that, to pursue that location versus a neighborhood where family businesses are located, where family life takes place, and for, like I say, all the reasons that everybody has mentioned, that this is a family-oriented area, and this would not be conducive to continuing that. So please do not support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Hi, how are you? My name's Anthony Ruggiero. For the record, my address is 2801 Whispering Wind Drive, Las Vegas, Nevada. I live in the Lakes community. The standard that the planning commissioners are supposed to apply is whether or not this SUP is going to be harmonious and compatible with existing surrounding land uses and future surrounding land uses. I have some experience with the city of Las Vegas, and I know that this neighborhood has been identified as a walkable community. The reason it's been identified as a walkable community is because you have these 5 beautiful master plan communities within this neighborhood. Unfortunately, when you look at the notification area, it's hard to say that Piccoli Ranch was adequately represented. It seems that maybe 10 houses within Piccoli Ranch got notified. It's hard to say that Canyon Gate was adequately notified. Maybe 30 houses within Canyon Gate were notified. Yes, at the intersection of Rampart and, Fort Apache and Sahara on the northeast corner, that's primarily apartment buildings. They don't own within the neighborhood. Yes, they rent within the neighborhood. Yes, they utilize all the surrounding uses, but they're not owners. The other neighborhoods, the lakes, maybe about 100 houses were hit.
Sir, we have particular notification distance that we will put mailers out to. If you want to talk about the notification, we can, but if you had other stuff that was pertinent to this, I would suggest that we talk about that.
Well, and that's my point, is that the notification area is very small. There's a synagogue that's just outside of the notification area. There's a library that's just outside of the notification area. There's M.J. Christensen Elementary School that's just outside of the notification area. That's the point I was trying to make, was that this notification area, while it is within the planning department's guidelines, it falls far short of the notification that should have gone out with a special use permit such as this in these neighborhoods. That said, the few meetings that were
Okay, it's been
held-
2.5 minutes.
Okay, I'll be brief, maybe
Okay,
another
you need
half.
to be very brief.
Thank you. The first meeting was held 50 attendees. There might have been 2 or 3 individuals that were in favor of this item. The second meeting, there was approximately 150 attendees, and there may have been 10% that were in favor of this item at those meetings. The fact of the matter remains is that this is not a harmonious and compatible use with the surrounding uses within this neighborhood. The neighbors have come, and they've come time and time again. It would be real sad and hard-pressed for this neighborhood to have to come out again to voice their opposition. The opposition has been voiced. It was voiced about a year ago as well. The fact of the matter remains is we all know why the applicant is choosing this neighborhood, because they can't get into Summerlin, and this is as close as they're going to get, short of going up to Hollopie. That's what we're facing, and we'd like our voices to be heard. 72 pages of opposition were included with your packet, Commissioners, and I ask that you take that into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing nobody else, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and ask the applicant to come back up. I'll give you a few minutes for a rebuttal.
Thank you very much. So I've watched a few of these SUP hearings take place before your body over the last few months, and certainly neighbors generally show up when it's something that they don't want and when it's something that they support. A lot of people, I think, take it as a foregone conclusion. I'm not sure why you can't turn out a lot of supporters at some of these meetings, but we, since the last neighborhood meeting, we have canvassed the ward. And I have got a map. I can show you a picture on my phone, and I can submit it. It's an electronic, along with 169 signatures. And those are just the written ones. We've submitted, I believe, prior to this meeting, electronic emails of the support. So we're at like 250 residents of Ward 2 have signed on to in support of this SUP, and we're continuing to talk and canvass the ward and talk to neighbors, which again is why we requested the time, because we wanted to really come back and show that while there is some vocal opposition, there is also a lot of support. I'll just, for the purpose of showing you a picture of where that support's coming from, I'm going to pull it up here on my phone, and hopefully you can see. And I'll move it around a little bit, but the red dots indicate every one of the supporters, and again, I'm sorry I didn't say it, Scott Rutledge, our general partners for the record. Surrounding the location here, all of those pins are folks that support in the lakes and the surrounding neighborhoods. We also have talked to voters and residents of the other parts of Ward 2, and we are finding support. But again, we wanted to continue down that path. We also wanted to have conversations with the planning commissioner about potentially needs to condition to address some of these concerns. There were some mentions of Colorado and other states. Well, let's talk about what's going on in Nevada. What we are not seeing in Nevada is widespread crime around these businesses and in adjacent areas to these businesses. I've talked to Metro about this. We've had conversations. What's the impact? We want to know if there's going to be a negative impact by this use, then we want to know what that looks like and what does the data say. And there isn't any data right now in Clark County that supports that the things that happen around these types of businesses are any different than another use. But to that point, understanding that there's people have said this up at the mic, they're afraid of marijuana, they have fears, concerns. And so the applicant has agreed to be conditioned, whether it be limited hours, additional security, whatever they can do to be the best possible neighbor in that commercial area. And it is a commercial area. The applicant chose this location based on some criteria. One, for example, is they know, based on where their current location is in Clark County, that they have over 2,000 customers that live in Ward 2 that have come to their dispensary, and this is almost near the Strip at Spring Mountain and Valley View. And so we know that people from Ward 2 are going as far away as that location to purchase legal marijuana. They thought this would be a good way to service some of that customer base. And we know that there are individuals that live in this end of town. There aren't going to be a lot of dispensaries. This may be, in fact, the only dispensary that gets approved in Ward 2, if it does get approved, based on some of the new zoning requirements, 1,500-foot distance separation from casinos, the 1,000-foot from similar uses. We're taking that into consideration, and we're forecasting this out. And I can tell you that the applicant is committed to being the best possible example for a dispensary. And if we are the only one in Ward 2, then obviously we're going to have a very high standard. We've listened to the neighbors. We hear your concerns. And I should address you, not the audience. I want them to know that we are listening. And it's also why we weren't trying to force this. We requested the abeyance originally because we wanted to make sure that the councilwoman could attend that first meeting. And so if someone came up here and noted that we had to change that, we did. But it was at the request of the councilwoman because we wanted her to be there. She wanted to be there, we wanted her to be there. And then she came to the 2 subsequent meetings. We are doing our best right now in this process to listen and to come up with a plan to make this the best possible, if we're going to get this land use approval, to be the best possible business in that location. But we feel like we have a little more work to do, and that's why we were asking for the abeyance to begin with. But again, to honor their time, I know they're busy, and people have families and other commitments, and we're coming up on the holidays. I was happy to sit here, like we sat at those 2 meetings, and listen to those concerns. And we'll continue to listen to those concerns. If anybody has any questions specifically about the application, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public hearing and turn this over to the Planning Commission for discussion and possible action.
I'd like to hear from the rest of the Planning Commission before I go on.
Yes, Commissioner Toussaint.
I know this area. I lived there for 20 years. I rented a mailbox place at the UPS store for over 17 years. Is this compatible with the area? I believe it is. I know that the residents don't want it. It's scary. You don't want it. I understand it. I really, really do. This is an emotional issue, but it is compatible. We cannot vote to approve marijuana dispensaries in wards 1, 3, and 5 and say, okay, Ward 2, no, we can't do that. I still have friends in Ward 2. I can't tell you how many phone calls, emails, and text messages that I received just in the last couple of weeks, knowing that this was coming before us. And a lot of them are in favor of it. And I said, well, come on down to Planning Commission. Let us hear from you. They said, no, we're afraid. We're afraid if we say we're in favor of it, these are our neighbors, they're going to do something to us. I said, well, that's silly. They won't. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. I'm entitled to my opinion. You're entitled to your opinion. And I respect your opinion, and I do hear you. I do believe that this is compatible with this area. Like I said, I was in and out of this area 6 days a week for 17 years. I lived in the community for 20 years. I was president of the association for the West Sahara Community Association of the Lakes for 10 years. My husband was president of the Lakes Association for 15 years. We created the Lakes Festival of Lights, which happened after 9/11. We are invested in this community. I understand it. I get it. I love this community. I remember when they first were going to build the community back in the 70s when the Collins brothers said, hey, we're going to have to pave Sahara past Rainbow in order to build this community, and they had to have a special session of the legislature to incorporate into the city. I've lived in Nevada for over 67 years. I wasn't born here, but I came here as a young girl. I understand what you're saying. I love this community. It has my heart. But I cannot, in good faith, approve what marijuana dispensaries in other areas and not approve one here. I can't do it. It's not consistent. And I think that staff did get this right, and that's my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes, Commissioner Rogan.
You know, I've given this great thought, and I do have to echo Commissioner Toussaint's sentiments. A lot of what I make a decision on is based upon what we've done before, and there have been marijuana dispensaries in the city of Las Vegas that have been approved in similar locations, And for us to suddenly change our mind and say that a similar location such as this is suddenly not compatible and not harmonious, I think is the wrong choice to make. I do get concerned about the idea that too many of these types of marijuana dispensaries are going to accumulate in one area. The sentiments that have been expressed before and were expressed tonight is they should be placed in industrial zones. Well, guess what? Those industrial zones in our city are all in Ward 1 and Ward 3. So when people come and say, we only want these in industrial zones, what you're saying is we condemn the folks that live in Ward 1 and Ward 3 to, if you look at it as a burden, is to shoulder this burden alone. And frankly, I think that if we're going to have marijuana dispensaries, which the voters approved, which the legislature considered, and which we voted on, then we have to spread these uses throughout the city and not say it's only available in these small locations. And so in due consideration, I think that I would support the applicant tonight.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Williams? No? Commissioner Chadha?
Okay, well, I think that this application and this use at this location has kind of a tortured history. An initial application was submitted by before my predecessor, and that application was pulled because of the overwhelming opposition on this matter. The application was submitted back in August. I believe that the burden is on the applicant to provide the conditions and the requests. This isn't a burden that is on the commission. And without having those conditions or anything since August, I think that there's an issue with this. Also, I happened to be at those town hall meetings, and I saw the overwhelming opposition. And that being said, I have to take into consideration the prejudicial effect on the residents of Ward 2 versus the burden that lies on the applicant. And with that, I don't feel that the applicant has met the burden tonight to have an approval of the special use permit. And with that, I'd like to make a motion to deny the special use permit.
Okay, motion's on the floor. To remind everybody, a yes vote would be for denial. Nay. Nay. Okay, can we get that motion fails, can we get another motion? Anyone, can we get Commissioner Toussaint?
I'll make a motion to accept, to approve with conditions.
Yes. And that motion carries. Director?
My apologies. So that item will move forward to City Council and be heard as a part of their agenda on February 5th, 2020.
Thank you very much, Director. Thank you, Vice Chair. Moving on to related items 9 and 10. Abeyance VAR 77522, applicant owner Masonic Memorial Temple Lodge, for possible action request for a variance to allow no sidewalk improvements along a portion of Mesquite Avenue where such are required at 2200 West Mesquite Avenue, Ward 5. Staff recommends denial. Related item number 10, abeyance SDR 77523, for possible action request for a major amendment to a previously approved rezoning to add an existing soccer field to a fraternal organization development, Ward 5. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the subject site is located in the CV zoning district, which allows any public or quasi-public use operated or controlled by any recognized religious, fraternal, veteran, civic, or service organization. The submitted justification letter, date stamped October 1st, 2019, indicates the soccer facility will only be used for the programming needs and activities of the Masonic Temple members and its affiliates. A condition of approval has been added to prohibit the commercial operation of the field. However, the submitted site plans do not provide sidewalk improvements required by Title 19 Complete Street Development Standards, and the applicant has provided no evidence of a unique or extraordinary circumstance to support the requested variance. Staff therefore recommends denial of both applications. Please note that there are additional neighborhood meeting notes in your supplemental information packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Ricky Barlow for the record, 2222 West Bonanza. As you all very well know, Commissioners, this item is coming back before you on an abeyance, a 30-day abeyance by Commissioner Williams. And I'm here to stand before you, and we also have neighbors here that I'm sure would like to comment as well, that the neighborhood meeting was held on December the 3rd at the Masonic Memorial Temple. And during that meeting, a total of 22 people were in attendance. There was an open and candid conversation where myths were solved and rumors were put to bed, while most importantly, new relationships, in my opinion, were established. Some of the operations of the Masonic Memorial Temple, the multi-flex space is what I call it, but tonight you all know it as the soccer facility, was designed to assist the Masonic Temple with the ability to generate revenue to help offset their increasing operational expenses. They were blessed with the opportunity to identify an angel donor in our community who was gracious enough to fund this beautiful facility. In exchange, the donor asked to be granted permission to afford their Little League Soccer Club an opportunity, utilizing the open space for soccer practice during the season for youth only, from 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Within this multi-flex space, there will be 2 LED light poles installed with its lumens directly positioned on the field, eliminating all light concerns from property owners east of the site to include oncoming traffic on Mesquite. As for the variance requesting tonight, the request of the abeyance of this installation of sidewalk, we, the applicant and neighbors, have agreed to support the variance with conditions. The neighbors are very concerned that in the beginning that the installation of the sidewalks would not take place. But I'm here to stand before you to say we do want to install the sidewalks. And in addition to that, where the miscue, the misfire took place is the fact that the donor had not attached the donation of the installation of the sidewalk with the installation of the facility. And that's the reason why we requested the variance, so that we'll have time to either raise the funds or in fact come back once the next grading permit or the next development that takes place on the site takes place, we're able to wrap that inside of the construction loan. But allow me to digress just momentarily, because what I don't want to do is speak on behalf of the councilman of the ward, but he and I had a conversation, and he has shared with me that he has identified a way and a source to get the sidewalk installed sooner rather than later. And so for that, I'll allow him to speak with the neighbors as to how, in fact, he's going to do that, but that information has just been shared with me by himself within the last 24, 48 hours. So I do want to make that a point of the record moving forward, to put some of the concern to rest in relation to the installation of the sidewalk. It will be done sooner than later. Within this development, there will be decorative wrought iron fencing erected, complementing the landscape throughout the site, as well as the Miracle League facility on the south side of the street. We have additionally agreed to inform all residents of ongoing activities and programming taking place throughout the Masonic Memorial Temple via the Rancho Manners Association president and through the utilization of their social media platforms. These are all agreements that we've made during that neighborhood meeting. The Masonic Memorial Temple and its affiliates are enthused to reestablish its neighborhood rapport by opening its doors as well as its open space to the Rancho Manor community in all of its future activities. This is a real commitment we are all hoping the residents take advantage of moving forward. So in closing, on behalf of the Masonic Memorial Temple, as well as their angel donor, we would like to thank the Ward 5 staff, Kelly Woods in particular, as well as the city planner, Jonathan Boyles, and the entire Rancho Manor community, represented by their very capable president, Ms. Tara Anderson. We are confident and committed to continue our great stewardship and community partnership from this day forward. And so at this time, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, I will await any further questions or directions you all may have of me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barlow. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard on this item? Please come up. We have 3 microphones. I'll need your name and address for the record, if you're for or against, and why.
Hi, good evening again. My name is Joseph Fragiadakis, Fragiadakis, 27 Jade Circle, 89106, in the Rancho Manor community. I was here last month as well to express my concerns for the whole project, and especially now finding out that there's the possibility of it becoming commercially rented out for any groups that want to use the facility, as they're calling it, for the soccer, for family reunions, or whatever. It's going to put extra pressure, and I don't know if there's a way to ensure the safety and being good stewards to our neighborhood, because it is a quiet neighborhood, it's all residential, and there's no, I don't know if there's a way to guarantee that the people that rent out the space are going to be good neighbors, in essence, you know, to use the facility as it's supposed to be used. Initially, it was supposed to be just for the soccer, for the Masonic Temple Soccer Club, and now we're finding out it can be rented out for whoever would like to use this as a fun area. So it's just a concern, something to consider, how they're going to continue that promise of, you know, moving forward with being good neighbors with our community. Is there a way to guarantee it, is really the concern with that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Steve Campbell. I live at 209 Shadow Lane. I believe I'm out of the 1,000 feet thing the city has, which I also will express to the council. That's wrong, because what happens to the entrance of my neighborhood affects the entire neighborhood, not just the 1,000 feet. And that's something that city council needs to address. But as far as this project, several things. The Masonic Order is a very charitable and honorable, but they ask us for trust, and trust starts both ways. They ask us for trust that they're going to be good stewards. The way this came about, the fact that they do not want to address anything from the past, not even discussing the fact that there was conversations, and we can show that there was conversations about a park in the neighborhood. The gentleman there talked about how laid things to rest. Well, they laid them to rest, but they have not addressed those things. They have not addressed the fact of why there is mistrust in the neighborhood of the council running the Masonic Order in our neighborhood. I do not trust them with their actions of how this came about to be good neighbors. And definitely the sidewalk, it's a no-brainer. It is also, what has not been pointed out, the area that this soccer field is wanting to be developed, commercial use, which he even stated, is right where there's a center rock piece and the traffic has to go like that. There's no bike lane because the bike lane ends. There's no place, it's too close right there. There has to be a sidewalk for safety. not promises of sometime. Not to require it as part of this is irresponsible.
Thank you very much. Can you get your name and address for the record, please?
Denise Weinmiller, 1808 Collins Avenue. The property that they're going to build this on is right directly behind almost 40 homes that will be affected by noise, lights, traffic. And this is the entrance to our neighborhood. I've lived at my address for 31 years. It's an extremely quiet, nice neighborhood. We have the medical centers all going in. And to have a soccer field where maybe some people can use, maybe they can, but for right now, it's just a benefit for the Masons. And that's not for commercial use. That's not part of the neighborhood. Maybe we'll get to use it if we notify someone. But then again, we're subjecting at least 40 homes who are 10 feet within this soccer field. So every night, or how many nights they want to have events, will be subjected to their noise and lights within 10 feet of their backyard. For years, nothing has happened, and now it's, oh, we're going to put a soccer field, and we're going to put some lights, and we're going to do this. And it's like, you're in my backyard. This is directly behind people's homes. But yet, adjacent to the lot, there's a huge empty lot with no houses. So why are we building it here when it could be built over there? So I feel that it is not necessary for the neighborhood to, for profit, go with the Masons' request for a soccer field.
Thanks for coming out. Thank you. Hello.
Hi there, Tara Anderson, 2104 Frontier Avenue. As a follow-up to the last meeting, I'd be remiss in not sharing that one of my dutiful and studious neighbors was able to actually find the archives of meeting minutes that date back to as far as 1975 around the dialogue about a park. Now, I share this, there's not explicit language that speaks to an official quid pro quo, you get a billboard, we get a park, but the narrative continues. And so I didn't want to leave that item in particular open-ended since it was a topic of discussion last week. Or last meeting, forgive me. So I do want to thank the Masonic Temple and the fact that, and Ricky Barlow for facilitating a conversation. Our hope ultimately is to forge a more constructive and collaborative and neighborly relationship with the temple, and albeit there's a lot of tender issues with the residents because of the history, I'm hopeful, but should this body decide to approve this application, there are very specific conditions that the neighbors minimally want to see. The lighting issue, currently we understand that it's temporary lighting. The specs were not provided to us, but it's our understanding that the permanent lighting that would be installed, the trajectory of it would not be intrusive westbound on Mesquite, which right now is blinding when you're in the evenings heading home, which is a safety hazard. The sidewalk issue, in that any future application, activity, requests, what have you, the condition of a sidewalk being installed is an absolute must. If monies are still available publicly, we're happy to explore those for the improvements that Ricky Barlow referenced on behalf of the applicant. We do not know of those for certain at this moment, if those monies are available, but happy to make the ask. The schedule currently, our understanding is the use for, as it relates to soccer, and the soccer league is Monday through Thursday. We have asked very specifically that the burden has to be on the temple, that they are going to be good stewards of this space. The wall that is adjacent, the property owners who are on the eastern side of the subject site, their walls are not the full traditional 6-foot wall. And so our ask is that there's not, I mean, if this becomes an invasive event space that's affecting the neighborhood, and this gets approved, we have no other recourse, and I understand we have code enforcement, but let's all be realistic, like, that doesn't always shut things down. And so that's the burden that we're putting on the Masonic Temple, that there has to be an expectation that this gets shut down. My last request is that should this not be approved, the commentary has been made to us that the existing chain link fence, that's temporary fencing, that was not part of the scope of this project, would survive in perpetuity. And the ask and the expectation is that that be removed should this not advance. I don't know if you guys can do that, but I'm just covering my bases. So, thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Barlow, if you'd like to have a quick rebuttal?
Yes, I would. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Commissioners. As I mentioned, there were a total of 22 residents that participated in the neighborhood meeting. And I know that we can't please everyone, but what I can stand here before you and share is that the majority of those residents that were there agree with the conditions in which their president, Tara Anderson, has basically brought forth in relation to how we move forward as being neighborly in relation to the Masonic Memorial Temple and its affiliates, as well as the neighbors. And so we are amenable to that. We are in agreement to that, and working with the councilman's office as well as the neighbors, we're going to install the sidewalk. That sidewalk, we want to do it. The only thing that we're asking is to give us an opportunity with this variance to come back to install it, whether it be through the council office and having further conversations as far as how the councilman is going to address that, or as we move forward with bringing forward an additional conversation in relation to a development that they would like to share with the residents. Let me also address the commercial piece of the conversation. Today, the Masonic Temple rents out their indoor space. They've been doing that for years. As a matter of fact, I held my first marriage reception years ago inside of the temple. So this isn't anything new. They have 3 fraternal organizations within this building. This building was built in 1972. This is a nonprofit organization that does wonders in this community as it relates to youth and those disadvantaged young people all across Southern Nevada. So this isn't a private organization that is flooded with income. They're trying to do all they can to continue to Band-Aid and put bubble gum on this building. And so finding creative ways to bring in additional income, and they're not going to get filthy rich off of renting out an outdoor space, right? So if we take, for example, the youth component out of it, because the individual with the youth program can say, well, I'm just going to move the program somewhere else. We still have a field there, a space there, that is a usable, rentable space for outdoor purposes. And so we've never wanted to, in any way, act as though this was something that it's not. And that's why when Commissioner Williams asked us to go back and to share and get more in depth in regards to the conversation, all of this basically is where we have reached today. And so what we're requesting is continue to work with the council office as well as the residents to basically reestablish that relationship and that level of trust, and understanding that we're not going to have every resident on our side moving forward. So I appreciate the time and respectfully answer any questions that you all may have.
Thank you. And I appreciate you reaching out. Sorry I couldn't get back to you. I was in the middle of a newborn.
You get it. Congratulations.
But thanks for reaching out. I appreciate you doing the legwork. I'll go to the commission for discussion on it. Commissioner Rogan?
I have a few questions, if I could. Mr. Barlow, last time you were here, you indicated that this was going to be a practice field.
Yes, it is.
And I did go and check it out, and it does seem to be a half soccer field, correct?
Yes, it is, sir.
What is the need for the bleachers?
For parents and observers, parents that come to basically watch the kids practice. But let me share this also. We could take those out. I mean, we were just basically trying to accommodate for the opportunity of parents to have a seat so that they're not just standing around the field.
I have no problem with that. I'm just concerned about the cheering that would accompany a full-on soccer match that might be happening at night and disturbing the residents next door.
Well, one thing I can say in regards to the distance, someone mentioned that the field is 10 feet away from the backyard. It's 80 feet. Okay, that's the width of, from the measurement of the turf to the property line, it's approximately 80 feet.
Well, 10 feet or 80 feet, I think, I still think cheering does carry.
Correct, right. I'm not trying to minimize that, but I just want to basically add the fact that with the trees and the additional landscape and the distance, specifically as it relates to a practice soccer facility, we're not looking to host any tournaments there. All the tournaments are being held at Kellogg-Zaire and Betty Wilson. We have, and you can condition that. We don't have a problem with that because this is not meant for a full onslaught soccer tournament. This is only specifically for the youth soccer ages pretty much kindergarten to 8 years old, 9 years old, to come out and basically prepare to go out to Kellogg-Zaire or Betty Wilson to have the full course soccer.
Okay, thank you. That clarifies that question. The lighting, what time do you think you're going to be operating this practice field until in the evening?
The latest, 8:30 p.m.
8:30, and the residents are aware of how late this is going to be operating?
Correct.
Okay, and they had no problem with that?
Correct.
Okay.
And let me share something also, because a lot of the residents assume that the lights that we're talking about are the big dome lights that you see at middle schools and high schools. It's not that type of lighting. There's 2 light poles specifically pointed down onto the field. They're directional LED lighting.
Okay.
And so those lights will be out no later than 8:45, giving the kids an opportunity to get to their cars and transition from that point. And that can be a part of the conditions as well. We don't have a problem with that because we know that the lights are not going to be on, or the kids won't be on the field no later than 8:30.
And then my next question is that chain link fencing that was mentioned that I saw, it's pretty terrible looking. Is
Yes,
that
it is.
coming down?
Yes, that is coming down, and just as I mentioned in my opening statement, is that we're installing a decorative wrought iron fence locking mechanism. So this is just temporary. When this facility was red tagged, we had to secure it, and so therefore, we had to place a fence around it to secure it while we get through this process.
All right, and then finally, what I'm hearing from you is you guys are going to build the sidewalk.
I'm sorry?
You're going to build the sidewalk, correct?
What you're hearing is we want to build the sidewalk. We don't have the funds to build the sidewalk as Masonic Memorial Temple today because the funds that were allotted was specifically earmarked for the installation of the soccer practice facility. When in fact they continued to do the additional installation as far as preparing for the wrought iron fence and the lighting package, the site was red tagged. And so therefore, once we got into the details, it was planning staff that says, oh, by the way, you all are required for the half-street improvement.
Well,
And so,
let me just put pause right there. Mr. Summerfield, if we grant this variance now, there's no legal obligation for them to improve the sidewalk at all, despite the promises that they might make tonight.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, so correct, Commissioner. If the variance is granted, then yes, it's been on the record, the intention of the applicant
That is
that
correct.
they will participate or work with the council office to get that infilled. I believe my staff is working on an if approved condition for the SDR that prior to any future development requests, the sidewalk must be completed, so that would impede any future requests. But yes, if this board approves the variance, then they are not obligated to do that sidewalk at any point in the future unless you also approve a subsequent condition about before future development occurs, that a sidewalk be completed. But that wouldn't be a part of the variance, that would be on the site development review.
right, and we have been working with planning staff to address that and be a part of that conversation because we're happy to do that as well, Commissioner.
All right, thank you very much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Rogan. You covered several of the questions I was going to ask. I guess my last question for Mr. Barlow is concerning the lighting. What are the specs? Is there a photo? What do you guys have that you're going to put in permanently?
Well, the light, there's going to be 2 light poles, And the light poles are not going to be no more than 60 feet, and the directional LED lighting will basically be focused directly on the fields.
Is that submitted with any of the?
Yes, as a matter of fact, it's right here in the backup that you all should have, Commissioner. Let me turn it around and show you here. Okay. Okay, so I stand corrected. It's actually 39 feet. I said 60, so it's half of that. So it's 39 feet tall with the directional lights pointing down on top of the field. And it's right here, spelled out here, as well as the fencing. The fencing is right at 6 foot, wrought iron fence. It's all within the site plan here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, so considering the fact that we did have conversations in the previous meeting, and I do want to say thank you to yourself and the residents for at least coming back to have some conversations. This was quite a contentious issue, and I do understand specifically, Mr. Campbell, the concerns about the trust and the past and the things that have happened. I think ultimately it is important that we figure out going forward how to start to mend past disagreements and not fulfilling commitments. But I have to tell you, Mr. Barlow, this project has quite a few requests, as you heard.
Yes.
In terms of conditions. I'm actually prepared to make a motion on the project, but I'd like to really speak to specific conditions and make sure that you understand and do not have any problems meeting those conditions.
I'm ready.
The first condition, so I'd like to I want to make sure I make the motion first and then state the conditions, or we can read the conditions.
Conditions will be on the SDR.
Okay.
Yes, any condition adjustments would be on the site development review, and I guess typically we would say what the proposed conditions, see if they accept them, and then make a motion with those amended conditions.
Got it, thank you. So the first condition is regarding the lighting, that all lighting on the field, and this is across a 12-month period, so annually that lighting is off by 8:30 p.m.
Commissioner, if you don't mind adjusting it by 15 minutes, because the practice is over between 8 and 8:30, so we want to at least have enough light to make sure that if there's any parents that linger behind 5 minutes, that the lights won't be out, and they won't be standing out in the dark parking lot. So if you don't mind adjusting it by 15 minutes, 8:45, we'll be happy for that. Well,
Mr.
we're talking
Barlow,
about kids, and so I want to make sure that we have enough lighting in the area for the safety and security of parents and their children.
I would recommend adjusting the practice. We want to meet the residents in the middle here, and so I would recommend adjusting the practice hours so the lights are off at 8:30.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Access to the field by the residents, we want to make sure, should they want to use the field, is that a problem?
Not at all.
No pets on the field. This is fake grass, false turf, so we don't want.
Absolutely no pets.
Okay. This is not to be used as a commercial enterprise.
Well, how do you define that? When you say commercial enterprise?
Commercial
I mean, because
enterprise, the space is not to be rented for profit. It's to be used for practice, as stated and requested.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay? And also, no tournaments on this field, practice only.
That's fine.
So if the applicant agrees, I'd like to make a motion for approval on item VAR 77522.
And as a point of reference, this is the variance for the sidewalk.
Correct.
The other ones will attach to.
Correct.
Item number 10.
Yeah, the SDR.
Mr. Chairman, if I can make a clarification that was pointed out to me by Public Works. So condition 7 of the variance does have a condition about a covenant with regard to future installation of the street. So they will have an agreement with regard to future development and a covenant for those improvements on the street.
Absolutely.
Mr. Payette can correct me if I stated any of that incorrectly. So there is a part of the variance, there is already some language in there to address that future improvements provision that was discussed.
That is correct.
I can't take discussion from the audience. I'm sorry, the public hearing is closed.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chairman, I can confirm that the covenant agreement requires them to sign an agreement that goes with the land, and so it will stay with the property until it changes hands, and forever it'll stay with the property, and they'll be required to put the sidewalk in at the time that the city requests them to put it in.
Not a problem.
Through you, Chair, just one clarification on the lighting hours. Well, it's usually like 8 a.m. until a certain time. Do you have like a certain time where they would be allowed to turn them on?
8:30 p.m. is the time for turning them off. I mean, they're going to come on at dusk, right? And they'll be off at 8:30 p.m.
Right, so for the condition, like maybe 6 p.m. or 5 p.m.?
Well, the time changes, right? So sometimes
4 p.m.
we
I
don't
think
want
4
to chase
p.m.
the
would cover
4 p.m. 4
everything
p.m.
you
will be
Yeah.
fine.
sundown, yeah.
4 p.m. would be great.
Before we hear the motion too, I have a clarification question. And that is, with regard to the no commercial use, how are we going to enforce that? How is that going to be determined that they're in violation or not in violation?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if I may, so the Code Enforcement Division of Planning will, we will take any complaints from the neighbors. If they are finding that there's a different group out there practicing every week, that would suggest that there's probably a lease, that there's revenue being generated off the field, and we would investigate that in those incidences. You're right, there's no proactive, I think, element that they can do to prove that they're not doing it. It's complaint-based. It's complaint-based. So if we see that we are receiving complaints that there's, a group of folks with yellow jerseys Monday and blue jerseys Tuesday, we will go out and we will work with the temple to find out exactly what's happening there. And if it is determined that there is a revenue-generating activity occurring, then they will be in violation of their conditions of approval as well as the code. Unfortunately, this property, both where the temple sits and where this soccer field sit, are not zoned for any type of commercial activity. They're civic zoning, which is completely appropriate for a fraternal organization's use, but if there's commercial revenue being generated from leasing of space, then that puts it into a different zoning category.
Which is in our conditions currently.
Correct. On the next item, we do have a condition that
SDR.
makes it very clear that the soccer field area may not be shall not be leased or operated commercially.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Schlauman?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, and one more question before we make a motion is made. I heard from Lucian about the covenant running with the land, but is there also something on the SDR that is going to require them to put in the sidewalk if any other SDR, other entitlements come forth to the Planning Commission?
And we're okay with that as well. We discussed that in the neighborhood meeting, and we're okay with that.
So right now, the covenant exists, so that's one protection, but if we want to be more explicit on the SDR, we can add a condition to the SDR that prior to submittal of any future proposed development on this site, the sidewalk shall be completed, something to that effect based on the discussion today. But again, that would be on the next item, so I think technically we have a motion on the variance that's actually for vote.
And Commissioner Williams, that was a motion for approval? Was that what I heard on number 9?
That was a motion for approval.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Still not coming up. Please post, and that motion doesn't carry. Can we have a motion in the opposition?
So someone who voted against the previous motion to make a motion to deny?
Commissioner Rogan?
Make a motion to deny item number 9, VAR 77522.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. that motion fails.
So it'll go forward to
So
council
with no recommendation. And I think it will get worked out at council. I think that's a better place in my mind when I was thinking about it. Commissioner Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before moving to the next item, I'd just like to ask Mr. Barlow to please clarify. I did have the condition of access to the field by residents. Can you just talk a little bit about what that looks like or how they would go about obtaining access?
Yes, for security purposes and also having the ability for the Masonic Memorial Temple to regulate who's on the facility for liability purposes, all the residents must do is come to the security office, which is right adjacent to the multiplex, and ask for permission to unlock the gate, and we'll have the gates unlocked for the time in which they would like to participate and be within that open space. So we don't have a problem with that. And we communicated that as well at the neighborhood meeting, and so the neighbors know that all they must do is just come in and request the gates to be open.
Okay, thank you. So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to also make a motion for approval on item SDR 77523 with conditions as amended.
And Mr. Chairman, to the motion maker, if I could ask for one added condition, if you will, something along the lines so the lighting will not be intrusive to people driving down the street, or as Tara Anderson stated when she come up here, I could ask the director if he could make a comment on that, and then I'll ask you if you would mind including that in your motion.
So, Mr. Chairman, through you, so the conditions that I would have, and so all of the amended or added conditions are on this item, the SDR 77523, so nothing was amended on the variance. So what I have on this one is I have a condition, all lighting shall be downward facing and shall not create a visual impact on the right-of-way. I have sidewalk installation shall be prior to any additional or future development applications to be submitted to the city. I have lighting shall be turned off by 8:30 p.m. I have temporary fencing shall be removed and new fencing installed. Those were the conditions I heard, Commissioner.
And the applicant agrees with all those?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
And then to reiterate, the existing condition already limits them to just the Masonic Temple's use, not for them to lease the facility to outside groups.
Mr. Chair? Yes. Just one clear. Is there a time frame for the fencing, Mr. Director?
That would be up to the commissioner. I don't know, since this was done prior to permits, I think most of the improvements have been completed. I think the fencing is ready to go, is my understanding, so it should be able to be done pretty quickly.
If I may, Mr. Chair, through you?
Please.
To address the fencing issue, we're ready to go with the installation of the fencing as well as the lighting. And so everything has been at a standstill, waiting for the approval to move forward. And so all of this will basically happen real time, and everything will be completed, I would think, within the next 30, 45 days.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I might, so the recommendation on this condition might be all temporary improvements to be removed within 30 days of final action. And then that way, if it's denied, they have 30 days to remove the things from the time of final action. If it's approved, then they have 30 days to finish their installation of the new fence and the lights.
But also, let me caution you, Director Summerfield, that it's also based on how fast your office moves with our ability to get the applications through your department. So I want to make sure that we have enough cushion there and we're not caught off guard, because...
So we could amend that. Instead of final action, it could be final permit review.
Thank you. That'll be better.
You good with that, Commissioner Williams?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Okay, there's a motion on the floor with amended conditions. Please cast your votes.
That would be a
For approval.
yes vote.
Please post, and that motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, those two items will both move forward to City Council to be heard as a part of their agenda on February 5th, 2020.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 11, abeyance SUP 77518, applicant Cornerstone Company, owner Earl M. Morimoto Trust, for possible action on request for a special use permit for proposed 40-foot tall, 14-foot by 48-foot off-premise sign use at 3838 Meadows Lane, Ward 1. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the subject site is located within an existing shopping corridor and has been included in the Las Vegas redevelopment area. There are existing residential neighborhoods to the south and west. While the proposed sign does meet Title 19 special use permit requirements, it does not adhere to Objective 2.4 of the Las Vegas 2020 Master Plan or the Las Vegas redevelopment plan. A similar application was heard by Planning Commission and denied in December 2014. Staff therefore recommends denial of this application. Please note that there is a revised elevation drawing in your supplemental information packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you state your name and address for the record, please?
Good evening. Jay Brown, 520 South 4th Street, representing the applicant. With me is one of the applicant's principals, Justin Michaels. We're requesting, as you know, a special use permit for a double-sided digital 14-foot by 48-foot off-premise sign to be located at 3838 Meadows Lane, the northwest corner of Meadows Lane and Valley View. The sign will auto-dim in the evening to reduce glare. It isn't visible to the residents to the south due to the former Centel building. To the north and west is the parking lot for the Meadows Mall. To the east is the parking lot for Springs Preserve. We are committed to allocate a percentage of the screen time to public service announcements such as Amber Alert, Springs Preserve, and Discovery Children's Museum. The proposed off-premise sign, as you heard from staff, complies with all Title 19 requirements. We met with both Commissioner Rogan and Councilman Knudsen, and based on their feedback, we improved the appearance of the sign. With that, we would ask you for your approval.
Thank you. This is noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard on this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and go to Commissioner Rogan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to start off by just saying I generally dislike any kind of large sign like this. I think billboards shouldn't be in our community, but they are, and unfortunately. But what I did is I looked at prior billboards that have been approved by this committee, and unfortunately, even though this is something that I generally don't support, we have supported these types of billboards in similar locations, and so it would be, I think, disingenuous of me to oppose it on those grounds, considering what has come before. I certainly appreciate the applicant in meeting with us and improving upon the sign so it matches some of the decor, some of the look of the Springs Preserve that's directly across the street. And so I thank you for that appeasement. And unless there's any other comments from the commission, I would make a motion for approval, subject to any conditions.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes.
Yes.
Please post.
Thank you very much.
And that motion carries. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, that item will move forward to City Council and be heard as a part of their agenda on February 5th, 2020.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving on to item number 12, MOD 77683, applicant Enterprise Rent-A-Car LLC, owner Garden City LLC, for possible action request for a major modification of the Town Center Land Use Plan to amend the special land use designation from SCTC to GCTC at 5750 Sky Point Drive, Ward 6. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, while the applicant's justification letter proposes uses very similar to those historically conducted on the subject site, the proposed special land use designation would allow other uses that are too intense for adjacent residential developments to the north and east. Staff therefore recommends denial of this application. Please note that there is an additional letter of support since publication. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you get your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, David Brown, 520 South 4th Street. I represent the owner of this property. The site was developed as a car dealership in 1997. It operated as a dealership for several years. However, the previous tenant left and the property has been vacant for several years. What is before you tonight is the first step of the applicant trying to reestablish the auto-oriented uses that the site was designed for. Currently, the sale of vehicles isn't permitted in this area. However, there is a text amendment down the road and is expected to be approved in February. The reason that we are moving forward with the zone change separate from the use permit is that if we handle them together it would cause a delay of approximately 2 months. The owner already has a firm lease in place with Enterprise for 10 years with 4 or 5-year options. The use permit will move forward as soon as the amendment is approved. We held a neighborhood meeting on this item and had no opposition. We ask for your approval.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. This is noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard in this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing, turn it over to the commission, and I will say I did meet with the applicant, and I did talk to Vice Chair DeSalvio at length, and he got really comfortable with the application after working with you guys, and one big thing was having that 10-year lease in place that he could see to see where it was going. And so I will be supporting it, and I am prepared to make a motion unless there's any other comments. No. On item number 12, MOD 77683, I make a motion for approval.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Please post. And that motion carries. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, that item will move forward to City Council and be heard as a part of their agenda on February 5th, 2020.
Thank you. Moving on to related items 19 and 20. VAR 77775 applicant, owner NSA Property Holdings LLC. For possible action, a request for a variance to allow 0-foot side yard setbacks where 10 feet is required. 3301 Mead Avenue, Ward 1, staff recommends denial. And related item number 20, SDR 77776, for possible action on a request for a site development plan review for proposed 119-unit, 19,425 square foot mini storage facility with waivers of perimeter landscape buffer requirements, Ward 1. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, while the proposed use is appropriate for the subject site and surrounding area, the site design fails to meet minimum Title 19 development standards. The applicant has provided no evidence of unique or extraordinary circumstance to support the requested variance. Staff therefore recommends denial of both applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Give your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, my name is Dave Michael, address 50 Roebuck Court, La Selva Beach, California. I'm the construction manager for Store America Guardian, who represents the NSA, West Coast Division. You have seen an application before for this property that we had requested landscape buffer to. Unfortunately, we kind of got the cart before the horse on exactly what we were the needs of the facility. What you see here is the true need of what we are interested in building. Previously, the zero lot line was basically for parking areas, and what we are requesting for here is a zero lot line for building with the covered RV parking on the interior of the property for security reasons, both for customers and for security reasons for the public. We're trying not to create open areas that will be problematic. I have kind of highlighted some Google Earth maps of similar properties in the area. There's quite a few, probably at least half of the properties in this area are all on zero lot line. I think I can show those. Is that what happens here? I'm not sure if I'm doing this right.
If you could rotate it.
Rotate it like this?
Yeah, one more time.
Okay.
One more time clockwise. There you go, perfect.
Okay, so the highlighted area that's X'd out in blue is the existing property to be expanded. All of the other areas highlighted in the red are similar uses with zero lot lines. Two of them happen to be storage facilities. And additionally, going the other direction, similar, X is existing property to be expanded, and all of the other facilities are zero lot line applications. It's obviously a very industrial zone. There's not a lot of buffer between any of the properties. I'm happy to answer any questions, but that's kind of the background of what we're trying to do.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. This is noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard on this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing, turn to the commission for discussion. Commissioner Rogan?
I'd make a motion for approval, subject to any conditions.
All right, there's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post.
That motion carried unanimously.
Thank you. That motion carries. Director?
Nope, they got the site development review yet.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Moving on to item number 20. Commissioner Rogan.
You read it. Thanks. I would also make a motion to approve item 20 SDR 7776. Did I get that right? 77776.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post.
That motion also carried unanimously.
Thank you. This time, Director, sorry.
No problem, sir. Mr. Chairman, those items will move forward to City Council and be heard as a part of their agenda on February 5th, 2020.
Thank you very much. Item number 21, we abstained. Moving on to item number 22, WVR 77741, applicant owner Silver Cloud Properties LLC, for possible action on a request for a waiver of the Appendix F interim downtown Las Vegas development standards to allow utility equipment within the public right-of-way at 1212 and 1214 South Main Street, Ward 3. Staff recommends denial. I will notice that I am doing a project within the notification area. It doesn't affect me any greater or lesser, so I will be voting on the application tonight.
Mr. Chairman, I'm doing a project within the notification area, and it's not going to affect me any greater or lesser.
Thank you.
So I'll be voting on the item tonight.
Thanks for the disclosure. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, staff is not able to support utility placement in direct conflict with Appendix F interim downtown Las Vegas development standards and is recommending denial of the request. If approved, staff has added conditions of approval to allow placement within the alley. Please note that there is an additional letter of support since publication.
Thank you very much. Can I get your name and address for the record, please?
Hi, Robert Gertison, 100 North City Parkway, Suite 1700. I'm here on behalf of the applicant, or the owners. The problem that we're running into is improving existing buildings with fire sprinklers and putting the backflow preventers in appropriate place. So what we found was approximately 20 years ago, City of Las Vegas has a mandate to Las Vegas Valley Water District to remove utility along the north-south running alleyways, which would then locate those appurtenances along California and Colorado east-west running streets. And so that would encumber the end cap owners in red and blue here to be burdened with locating any of the interior block property owners to have any proper sprinkler backflow preventers on the property. So the end caps would have to encumber those interior block RPDAs. With that, we have approached a landowner, which has agreed previously for us to proceed with the improvements for our restaurant that's going to have about 141 occupants, which are going to require fire sprinklers. When we got to the point where we had went through planning, went through building department permit review and approvals, and through construction, the owner decided that they wanted to not be encumbered with the backflow preventer. So what that did was, now we're stuck not being able to improve our building with fire sprinklers. So myself, City of Las Vegas Public Works, and Planning Commission has met with Las Vegas Valley Water District. We put our heads together and have agreed that the best location would be in the alleyway with a very skinny profile RPDA, which is backflow preventer, along the Colorado Street versus our original proposal, which was California. In this proposal, we have worked with Water District. The Water District has agreed that the water pressure is sufficient coming from, Colorado. The location of the RPDA in the alleyway with the thin profile would work since it has worked in other applications in the downtown area. And let's say that the water pressures are good and then the profile works. And so with that consensus, we're proposing to move forward for this solution, because it not only affects us, it's going to affect many other people in our situation throughout not only the Arts District, but anybody in the downtown area with an alleyway. So with that said, we're requesting that you allow us to put our RPDA in public way with a private line, and this private line will provide sprinklers to other property owners that can tap into us, or tap into our line. The last thing I want to mention is what Water District and Public Works has discussed was a solution, not only for our design, but also for other properties that are going to be facing the same problem, is to put a master RPDA on each end of the alleyway with a connecting 8-inch line that creates a loop between the east and west running streets, which would increase the pressure and allow for other interior lots to connect and improve their buildings. So with that, we're requesting approval.
Thank you very much. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard in this? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing. And before I go to Vice Chair, what is the width that you have left over in the alleyway?
The alleyway is 20 feet wide. The box that we're providing is 12 inches off the wall. The box itself is approximately 4 feet, so the remaining will be about 15 feet. There's going to be some bollards. The bollards are probably going to take up another foot. So let's say you're going to have about 14 to 14 and a half feet of remaining space for the alleyway.
Okay, and that's what I thought, which was consistent with a previous application we saw. And I know this area very well, and it's very difficult. Even on a new ground-up project, it's unfortunate how much square footage we have to lose because of these kind of old design details that really don't address urban areas. So I will be in support of this application. And just a note, I think you had a spelling error on your first page for interior, but I'll go to Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chairman. Full disclosure, I was at a meeting with Mr. Gurdson in the Water District and Mike Jansen from the Public Works and Fred Solis from City of Las Vegas Planning Department, Tom Burkhart, and we all got together trying to find a way to get the RPDAs out of the sidewalk, and that's something that's been pretty important and something that I've been looking at for quite some time. If you remember last month, I had a project come forward right across the street, and it was similar to this. And it's based on having a narrow style RPDA in the alley. And one of the good things is more than one person can tie into that RPDA, and so you don't have 15 of them if there's 15 people in the alley. So I like it. The question I have for you is, in your backup, I seen that you had an RPDA on the sidewalk versus in the alley. Is that just an old exhibit?
That's correct. Before and thank you for mentioning that, and thank you again for your participation in that meeting. That is an old location, and since we've had that meeting, the consensus with the Water District and City of Las Vegas was to put it in the alleyway so that's out of sight, it's not garish, and it accomplishes City of Las Vegas planning goals, but also allows for sprinklers to happen for the interior blocks.
Thank you. And a question for Lucian. I'd like to see this happen on more projects, in the Arts District, we don't have this same issue across the entire valley due to the fact that I guess there's more land and better areas to put it, but when we encounter all these old buildings in downtown, the Arts District, Fremont Street, we're running into this issue over and over. I know personally, I tried getting the Water District to allow me to extend the water main to the back of my property. I even tried encasing the water mains in concrete, and the Water District said no. So we can't use the argument that it's unsafe to have a water main in an alley, because this particular exhibit shows an RPDA with a water line going from the back of the RPDA down to the building. So it's not a matter of, is the water safe at that point? And I can't find the justification of why we're not allowed to do this more often and why the Water District won't allow it. But I would like to see the city finally come together with the Water District and the developers, first the Water District and the city, because the developers already come to the table as part of that meeting, and see if we can finally solidify something. I don't know if it's something that you could put on your list and bring back up here in the next 60 days and see if they give us a status update and keep us informed as the city's moving forward on this.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair, I'll update you as I'm updated. You've been in some meetings that I haven't been in, and actually tonight was the first I heard that it could be used, the same line could be used by other people. So there's still more I need to learn on it, and as new updates are given to me, I can share them and, share with the commission.
And Vice Chair, I will say, it is expensive, and so when someone's doing a small build-out, this could be half their build-out.
Absolutely.
Someone's doing a little $50,000 TI or $100,000 TI, and now all of a sudden you have to have this, and it's $80,000 to put this in, and which I know in the past has turned a lot of people out to coming into some of these spaces, because it just throws their budget way out of whack, and they can go somewhere else, and it's significantly less, and everyone knows how hard it is to be in business, so it would be nice to, everything you're saying, that we could find a common ground there.
And Mr. Chairman, another important component to that is the time frame. If it takes an applicant 6 to 8 months to get a set of civil drawings approved, just working through the Water District and easements and everything else, that could definitely kill a business. And building permits typically aren't issued until after a civil permit is issued, so that could tack on another 4 months after they have their civil plans. So, construction, it just really extends everything. I think one of the issues that the city also brought up was the fact after this meeting, they didn't know how to organize a reimbursement program, because the first person who puts this in, such as Rob Gerdson's client, everybody else would be able to tie into it, and the city doesn't have a mechanism to allow other people to tie into it and reimburse this developer. For us, we're willing to, pay the expense, and if somebody wanted to reimburse us in the future and tie into it, we could worry about that, but we weren't even looking for a reimbursement. But the city did work with us on that, so just like to keep pushing that forward and see if we can overcome this hurdle, because it's been a hurdle for 10, 12 years. So with all that being said, I'd like to make a motion for approval on item number 22.
There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post.
That motion carried unanimously.
And Mr. Chairman, that item is final action this evening unless appealed to the city clerk's office within 10 days.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 23, I have to abstain. My company has a financial interest with the parent company of the next applicant.
Yes, On item 23, SUP 77832, applicant owner Tibrio 2 LLC for possible action on a special use permit for a proposed 8,000 square foot nightclub use with a 2,063 square foot outdoor seating area at 517 Fremont Street, Suites 110 and 150, Ward 3. Staff recommends approval. Can we get the staff's report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the proposed nightclub use is within both the downtown entertainment overlay and the Fremont East District as a conditional use. The SUP is required as a result of it not meeting the distance separation requirement, with it being located within 1,500 feet of a school. Staff has concluded that this proposal is in keeping with the intent of the downtown entertainment overlay and therefore recommends approval. Please note that there are additional letters of support since publication.
Is the applicant present? Seeing none, I'll go ahead and open the public comment portion of this agenda. Anybody wanting to be heard, please come down. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment portion. Turn this over to the Planning Commission for discussion and possible action. All right, I'll go. Number 23, it's a special use permit for a nightclub. This is what we have up and down Fremont in this whole area. It fits as appropriate as staff has recommended approval. So I'm ready to make a motion, and my motion would be for approval on item 23, SUP 77832. Please cast your votes. And that,
The motion passed.
thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, through you, I just want to point out for the clerk that the item that was on the screen was not the item that they just voted on what was on the TV monitors. So just for the record, it showed item 19, I think. So on item 23, that was final action this evening unless appealed to the city clerk's office within 10 days.
Thank you very much. Moving on to SDR 77756, applicant owner 214 South 11th Street, LLC. For possible action request for site development plan review for proposed 3-story, 18-unit multifamily residential development with waivers to allow a 0-foot side yard setback where 5 feet is required, 12 parking spaces where 26 are required, and a reduction in landscape buffer requirements at 214 South 11th Street, Ward 3. Staff recommends approval. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the proposed site development plan review for a multifamily residential use development includes waivers and exception requests concerning setbacks, landscaping, and parking. Despite those requests, staff has found that the proposal is compatible with the existing development in the surrounding area and the overall vision of the Founders District, which is meant to encourage corridor redevelopment that includes mixed-use residential, creative office space, and community-oriented amenity spaces. Therefore, staff recommends approval. Please note that there is an additional letter of support since publication.
Thank you, and I will disclose, I am working on a project that's just outside the notification area. It won't affect us any later, greater or lesser, well, tongue-tied tonight, excuse me. Can I get your name and address for the record, please?
Yes, Kristen Goodell, 241 West Charleston. Good evening, commissioners and staff, thank you. We are the architect for the project and representing the owners. We have reviewed the conditions of approval and we agree with all of them and respectfully request your vote for approval for the project. And we're happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you very much. This is noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard in this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing, turn it over to the commission for discussion. Vice Chair Schlotman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I reviewed this application, and I think it's a great a great project down in near the Founders District. I know Mr. Cohan has built another community in that area. I've built a community in that area, and I think we need to see more residential around there. So I'm kind of excited. Love to see a lot more of this. So hopefully you'll keep building them, selling them, and bringing us more. If there's no other comments, ready to make a motion.
Please do.
Yes, on item 24, SDR 77756, I move to approve, subject to staff's conditions.
So motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. And that motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, that item is final action this evening unless appealed to the city clerk's office within 10 days.
Thank you. Moving on to item number 25, SDR 77783, applicant Artistic Ironworks, owner Karen M. Bailey and Thomas Prado, 2003 Living Trust, for possible action on request for a major amendment to approve site development plan review for an existing outdoor plaza with a waiver of required perimeter landscape standards at 105 West Charleston Boulevard, Ward 3. Staff recommends denial. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, the subject site is being reviewed as the result of an open code enforcement case dating back to August 2018. The request is to develop the site's perimeter areas as is currently existing and to waive the landscape buffer requirements. Both requests are in direct opposition to the Vision 2045 Downtown Las Vegas Master Plan, which calls for a greener downtown and the promotion of urban forestry. Therefore, staff has recommended denial. Please note that there is an additional letter of support since publication, as well as a supplemental sheet concerning code enforcement.
Thank you. Can you get your name and address for the record, please?
Jacqueline Rondo, 2744 Trotwood Lane. Pull it close to me. Okay, sorry.
What was your last name? Sorry. Jack?
Rondo.
Rondo, thank you.
I am representing Artistic Ironworks, Thomas Prado and Karen Bailey. They are the owners. The landscaping that we are asking that the landscaping requirements be waived, and we are able to keep our art out there.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add about the application? No. Thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard on this item? Seeing no one, I will close the public hearing and turn it over to the commission for discussion. Vice Chair
Yes.
Schlotman, excuse me.
Yes, Chairman, thank you very much. On this item, I usually like our landscaping, want to see our landscaping. I do see the landscaping on Commerce that the city put in, big wide sidewalks. When you look at the Artistic Iron, historically, they've always had this ironwork and artwork out there, and it's actually pretty cool and pretty unique, and a lot of people know y'all because of the stuff that you have out there. I don't personally have a problem with it, and I think it's a little bit unique in the sense that it's on Charleston. There's a big concrete berm right next to it, so if you're a pedestrian walking down the street, you're not actually going to be getting shade from any street trees or anything in that particular area. So here's one example of where I think the art would be more of a benefit to our community than a couple of trees.
And Vice Chair, I will say, like, for over a decade, if I'm coming home late and I come underneath the Charleston overpass, and I come up and I start to see the dinosaur and the Indians there, and I get excited, I know I'm home. So
there you go.
It's been that way for a long time, so I will be supporting this application in the Arts District as well.
Thank you. On item number 25, SDR 77783, I move to approve subject to staff's conditions based on testimony heard tonight.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your votes. Please post. That motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, that item is final action this evening unless appealed to the city clerk's office within 10 days.
Thank you, Director. And moving on to the Director's business. Item number 27, TXT 77913, applicant owner, City of Las Vegas, for possible action request to amend LVMC Title 1912 and 1918 related to beer wine cooler on and off sale establishment use, and LVMC Title 6.5 related to the ancillary winery license and fees, and to provide for other related matters. Excuse me, staff has no recommendation. Can we get the staff report, please?
Mr. Chairman, this amendment will allow ancillary wineries to be licensed and operate when approved via a special use permit for a beer wine cooler on and off sale establishment. Staff has no recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you. This was noticed as a public hearing. Anyone from the public like to be heard? I'll need your name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is John Bear. I own TCB Vegas LLC, and I'm representing Pine Hollow Winery. These folks have successfully operated a craft winery in another state. They've since decided and seen the wisdom of moving to Nevada. What we discovered as soon as we got here was that the city doesn't have an ordinance that allows a craft winery, even though we have one that allows a craft brewery. and it's been very successful down in the downtown area, I think we'll all agree. And so we met with their Councilman Creer, and he said this is a good idea. And we met with a number of people in Planning Department, and we came up with this text amendment in order to allow us in the city to have a craft winery. What we would need is this text amendment to get approved so that they can actually start looking for a location, because we need that in order to get moving forward. I'm here to answer any questions. This is Barbara Vigilio, the manager of Pine Hollow Winery. If we have any questions to answer, we appreciate your approval.
Thank you very much. Barbara, did you want to add anything, or? I'll need your name for the record.
That's Barbara DiVirgilio. I own Pine Hollow Winery. We come here from Pennsylvania for the sole purpose to open our winery in the city of Las Vegas. We make handcrafted wines, primarily from fruit. We do not have a vineyard. We have no intents of putting a vineyard in the middle of the city. We source our fruits we will source them from the local farm market and some of the vineyards that are in Reno is where we intend to source some of our juices. Everything we make is handcrafted. We have no large equipment. Everything is manual. We don't think that we would have much impact on the community other than a place where they can come, sit quietly, sip our fine wines, and enjoy a smoke-free, no gambling atmosphere where they can sit and network and talk about wine.
Great. Okay, thank you. See no one else, will close the public hearing. Turn it over to the commission for discussion. I mean, I see myself supporting this. I know there's a lot of these breweries that have opened up in the Arts District area, and it's really taken off. There's been one wine bar, different than the breweries, and it seems like it's the only wine bar in town, actually, in the Arts District there, and it seems to be doing well. But specific to this use in the text amendment, I see myself supporting this. Commissioner Toussaint?
I agree. I think this is great. I don't drink beer. I do drink wine, and I think this would be great, and I'd love to go to this establishment, so you will have my support here tonight, too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair, do you want to make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion on item 27, TXT 77913. Move to approve.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Please cast your vote. Please post. That motion carries.
And Mr. Chairman, that item will move forward to City Council in ordinance form, anticipating sometime after the new year.
And before you run out and do a lease, Barbara, it goes a little more process to go through. But
I understand.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to citizens' participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to the matters within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. No subject may be acted upon by the Planning Commission unless that subject is on the agenda and scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, come to the podium, give your name for the record. The amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Vice Chair Schlotman.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to give a shout out to our Vice Chair DeSalvio for his 25th wedding anniversary tonight.
Yeah.
So, anyways, congrats there. And question for the Planning Department. In regards to the form-based code, I know that we have adopted everything in the medical district. Have we formally adopted, and has it been adopted by City Council, the form-based code for any other portion of the form-based code, such as any portions of the Downtown Centennial Plan?
Mr. Chairman, through you, so yes, so council has adopted both the regulations and the updated zoning for the pilot area of the medical district. We're working on the rest of the medical district now under Councilman Knutsen's leadership. And then the council has also adopted the Fremont East District in its entirety. You had one item tonight for the special use permit for the nightclub. So both of those two districts are adopted. We are actively working on the Historic West Side District right now with the consultant and with the Councilman Creer's office, and we anticipate that will come before you also sometime early in the new year. And then as we complete that district, the Arts District is next up for use of the form-based code and moving that through incrementally through the districts.
Okay, and a question in regards to that, because I've heard this from several people from the Arts District and well, more so on Fremont Street, that, you know, in that downtown Centennial Plan, we always had the automatic application parking standards do not apply within downtown Centennial District. That didn't mean that we would just look past it. I can recall here recently certain high-rises and other projects that I denied based on parking. However, it didn't require someone to go and get request a variance. And now I'm wondering, are we creating, have we created something where people are going to have to start requesting these variances, and is that harder to approve?
I'm sorry, Chairman, we may be going a little far afield of where we're supposed to be, so.
I mean.
Maybe if we can put it on an agenda item, and maybe we can have a status update, Vice Chair?
But if I'm not making a motion on this, if I just want, can I just have that one question, then I'll answer, and I won't say anything more?
That's fine.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, through you, so Commissioner, you will actually have a text amendment coming, I believe it's in the second meeting in January, that will actually address parking as it relates to the form-based code, because we have had some challenges there. However, I would be clear that one of the things that was some people saw as a benefit of the Centennial Plan, but others, particularly in the Arts District, have now seen maybe wasn't such a benefit, was the fact that there were no parking, automatic application of the parking standards, but yet there was no guidance on parking. You will find that in the form-based code that is different, but it was never the intent to make that require now a variance, and so we're going to be fixing that in a text amendment that will come before you. Like I said, I believe it's the second meeting in January.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Rogan.
Director Summerfield, along the lines of form-based code, I had asked for a briefing on that simply because I'm not familiar with it. I'd like to become more familiar with it. Haven't received that, and I'm sure Commissioner Chada would love to attend that as well, since we're both new to this, and perhaps Commissioner Williams. But certainly, if that's upcoming in the early new year, I think that it's imperative that we have that briefing.
Can we get CLEs for that? Kind of need them before the end of the year, too.
So, Mr. Chairman, through you, so yes, Commissioner, I apologize if we haven't made that work yet, but yes, we will definitely do that, and since particularly the Historic West Side is coming next, Commissioner Williams would definitely be invited to that, and with the update to the medical district. So we will work to get a special briefing set aside for just the form-based code, separate from your standard agenda briefings.
Thank you. Okay, and welcome back, Mr. Summerfield. You've been gone for a while. You came back with a strong suit. Looks nice. And the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thanks.
My holiday time.